And because I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, I had to find a way for me to get up to speed, learn the terminology, and make myself actually teach myself how to do startups. Yep, of course, we went through the typical business model canvas type of activities. We tried a lot of ideas, and subscription for micromobility seemed like a pretty cool idea. At the time, there was not much of that.
Welcome to a new episode of Meet the Transformers, the new Transforma podcast where we share inspiring entrepreneur stories from the members of the Transforma community. Transforma is a co-working based in Brussels and in Zaventem. If you like this podcast, don't hesitate to subscribe, to share it, to like it, and you can even leave a voice message. I'm Federica and I host this podcast with Anis.
Hello, Federica.
Hello, Anis. And today we are going to introduce you Evrim Taskiran, who is the founder of STEP. So hi, Evrim.
Hi, good morning.
And thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to welcome you among our guests.
Yes, thanks for inviting. It's exciting. First podcast for me.
Yeah, we always start with a simple question. Maybe not that simple as we think. Huh? Who are you, and what's your project about? What's STEP about?
Okay. I'm a Turkish origin Belgian citizen, and I studied quite a technical background, specialized in the robotics field. I had my first jobs in the United States, then Spain, and then moved to Belgium. And since almost 11 years, I've been living here. And I also took several jobs in Belgium. I started as an innovation consultant in the automotive field, later followed by an MBA. 2018 at INSEAD in France and Singapore. And afterwards, that was the time I had 7 years of corporate automotive background and I needed a change. And the MBA gave me the courage and the guts actually to do something very different. That's how I found myself in entrepreneurship. And because I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, I had to find a way for me to get up to speed, learn the terminology, and make myself actually teach myself how to do startups. And the way I could find it was I joined an accelerator program in Amsterdam called Antler. And this is a special program for, let's say, wannabe entrepreneurs. But also you have entrepreneurs that have been doing this for a long time. So I joined this program in Amsterdam and I got out of that with STEP. The STEP initially was a different business than what it is now. And the initial idea was very much inspired by the success story of Swapfiets, the blue tire company, as many of you might know, which is a subscription model or product as a service model that gives you the access to a device, a mobility device, in which case Swapfiets focuses on bikes, and we try to do it for steps, for kick scooters, electric kick scooters, or trottinettes as you call. And we tried that business for a long time, and we had, of course, different challenges. And the challenges pushed us to adapt our business model to find something that eventually we see there's a big fit and a big market potential. And that's why now we call ourselves StepFix. And you can probably have follow-up questions on that.
Amazing. What an incredible background. You traveled the world.
There is a lot to unwrap in just this introduction.
Yes, I indeed went too far, but yeah.
No.
It's, let's go.
You gave us great material to discuss. But personally, the first thing I would like to ask is where did this motivation to become an entrepreneur come from? It's not very common, let's say, background to want to become an entrepreneur, to educate yourself how to become an entrepreneur.
I totally agree, because it's a funny thing that in this MBA program, of course, you get a lot of coaching and support from career development, and they make you a lot of tests. So in those tests, you fill surveys and they give you what you are comfortable with, what your, let's say, strengths are. And I was the least of my personality or my character was about, like, the entrepreneurship was at the bottom. For every survey I did, I was choosing security, safety over like uncertainty, risk, etc. So this was actually my inner fight to fight against my comfort zone. And that's why it was a bold move for me as a person. Some might say, yeah, whatever, like it's you start a startup. But it was a big change for me to, change the seats from a safe employee seat where I have a safe salary and pretty good income and so on. With my MBA especially, I could get pretty good jobs. But I chose the very uncertain and very,
Just as an opportunity to learn, to fight back against those results you receive.
I wanted a change. I didn't know what the change should be. And that change I thought was, I wanted to do something more dynamic, more energetic, which is actually, again, against my kind of profile or my personality, which I am a super introvert person who doesn't like to be on stage, who doesn't like interact a lot with people. So I have a very, let's say, reserved personality from that perspective. What I tried during the MBA, I tried to see, during the program, of course, you get a lot of nice companies, very good companies. They give you fancy gifts and champagne events and super nice dinners so they could impress you and make you an employee. And I joined everything because it's free food and all. But what I really liked was the startups coming on campus and they're presenting their small businesses, small ideas, small teams, and you meet directly with the CEO. I'm like, wow, this is a good adventure. It must be amazing journey for them, and I wanted to actually join these companies. So my initial idea was, I can join a startup and learn how it works. But I was labeled as I just said, a very safe profile that worked in a corporate for 7 years and didn't change. And they saw me as not a risk taker, and they saw me how I would perceive myself also personally, like I am a safe guy, secure guy, and they could see that, and that ended up me not getting any startup jobs that I really wanted. And in a startup, they really need to find a perfect match, and that perfect match wasn't there because of my, let's say, background. So I wanted to change that label. And that label change wasn't easy. Like, you don't become an entrepreneur. You wake up, let's say, today I'm an entrepreneur. That doesn't happen that way. And I needed a boost. That I thought this program in Amsterdam was great because you join as yourself. You don't need an idea. You don't need a team. You don't need a business. You don't need anything. You just join the program with your motivation. At this part of your life, you want to do something in entrepreneurship, and that was actually designed for this purpose. So that was a great program for me to meet people, similar-minded people, to learn from their experiences. And half of the program had already startup experiences, and the other half had no idea how to work in a startup. So that was a learning for me. And the decision, to your question, indeed, I wanted to test this, and I always said, if I screw up, it's okay, I can go back to a safe job. But I liked it so much that I don't see myself now going back to that other route.
And I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago when you came to see us with two co-founders, right?
Yes.
So one was based in Amsterdam.
Both were
based in Amsterdam. Yeah. Tell us a bit about how you met them and how the idea came to life.
In this program, again, we were 70 people with different ambitions. I was trying to be proactive in creating a group of people interested in mobility because I came from the automotive world and I was really enjoying the developments in this micro-mobility space that I think sparked in the US with the boom of scooters in 2017 and 18. And then it started to mushroom all over Europe. You have scooter companies here and there, and there's also the negative reputation of them. So I knew I wanted to do something in the mobility space. I didn't know what exactly. So we created a group of 5-6 people who said, okay, let's do mobility. So 2 of these other co-founders were in this group, and we started brainstorming. So what should we do? We tested a lot of different ideas, including like corporate travel and completely different stuff than micromobility. But micromobility was really fun, and we really believed in, if we had to change cars with something, this has to be something lightweight, and it has to be something that is more sustainable than the other options. So that sustainability aspect pushed us to move into the micromobility space. And because there were already several companies doing the same thing, so we tried to find a way, how can we do something different, some workarounds to have a niche market. And that subscription for kick scooters came out of that, let's say, brainstorming.
All right, so out of an ideation session.
Yeah.
You met your co-founders there. They were part of the,
yes,
let's say, participants who didn't have an idea.
Yep, of course, we went through the typical business model canvas type of activities. We tried a lot of ideas, and subscription for micromobility seemed like a pretty cool idea. At the time, there was not much of that, and now we have like bike subscription everywhere, and hundreds of companies are doing it in Europe. But at the time, people were scared of the capital intensive side of that business, because for every new client you have to buy another device. Mm-hmm. So who is going to pay for these devices? And the investors always had the question, how are you going to do your asset financing? Can you go to a bank? Can you get credits? Because nobody wants to spend their money into buying assets that they don't know what's gonna happen with them. Mm-hmm. Especially in the case of kick scooters, it was very new technology. There was amazing bad image from the United States with companies like Bird publishing or leaking some news that in this particular city, in this particular season, this terrible model ended up 28 days of lifespan, and this created a massive, like, people went crazy. Scooters are super.
Right. So 28 days. One scooter lasts 28 days.
That was indeed
the report.
Yeah. That was indeed the report, because there was media attention, and there was a lot of negative, let's say, connotation to kick scooters. And
there were some pictures of mountains of bikes and kick scooters.
Yes, the mountains of bikes, I think, was from Ofo, from China. Indeed, Ofo was scaling too fast, and then they went also with the same speed downwards. And they had like those mountains of yellow bikes, that famous picture. And the same with scooters happened with, I think, either Bird or Uber, that they had to like throw away a lot of things. This is actually another motivation that we should do something in a more circular or sustainable way, rather than increasing the consumption of these devices or the production of these devices. We could perhaps do something more circular in the way that we can reuse, we can increase the utilization of each device, so that we actually fight against excessive consumption. And that's how we started this and how it evolved in the next stages of the company.
And at the beginning, you weren't, or maybe you didn't put in practice the circular model, business model, but now you're optimizing it. You just made it real.
Yes. Initially, I mean, even the subscription or the product as a service model is also circular in itself, because you use the same device. And what is the typical scenario? You go to, I don't know, to MediaMarkt or Fnac, you buy a kick scooter, and that device becomes yours for, let's say, 2 years. You may use it from time to time. Sometimes you don't use it. In the winter, you put it in the garage. And in the end, what typically happens, if that device breaks down, people lose interest in it, or they don't like it. They don't like it anymore. So this device is not used as much as it could. And the subscription business actually encourages, if the person doesn't want to use it, you just stop your subscription and another person takes the same device. We always make sure that the device is in good condition. But I can say for the last 2 years, the same device that we purchased in like 3 years ago, 2019, is first still alive, unlike the Bird story of 28 days. So we have devices that have gone more than 3 years with no problems. As long as you can repair, they will survive. And the same device has seen more than 7, 8, 9 different customers over its lifespan, unlike the typical scenario of having only one user. So that was already circular in itself. But now we are moving into another business model that focuses purely on the refurbishing and repairing and doing maintenance of these devices, which is even more circular.
It's not the same usage, let's say, of the devices. So the 28 days or the bird model is a free-floating offer. So scooters are everywhere in the city, and then people just locate them with geolocalization and then scan whatever QR code and jump in. But your model was you provide individuals or companies with devices and they keep them. It's like swap feeds, more.
I mean, in
how
the
do you call that model? It's not free floating, so it is.
We call it subscription.
Subscription based, okay.
Some people want to call it fancy, like product as a service. The sharing scooters call us long-term leasing, because they call themselves short-term leasing. So yes, you have all these different descriptions. But in the end, indeed, in our case, there is some kind of ownership without having to own that device. Mm-hmm. So the people actually own that device for the period of time they are actually paying for that device. And if they don't want to pay for that device, we just take it from the person and then we give it to another one. And you expect people, when they own something, they respect also the device. So there is much less vandalism as you would have in the streets. Mm-hmm. And they are not exposed to environmental, like weather conditions, as you would have them in the winter outside. And that 28-day story is, I mean, it's a device that was not designed for sharing. In the beginning, this was a consumer product. And of course, if you put it on the streets, you don't expect a lot of life from that. And now all these sharing companies have improved. Also, the device manufacturers improved a lot of things so that these companies you have in the streets have the same devices also for 2 years, 3 years now.
And so what happened? You started offering you designed the offer, you started the company, and you're located in Belgium because your life is in Belgium pretty much.
Yes, because the program was in Amsterdam, we started the company in actually Amsterdam. The company initially was a Dutch company, and Anis can remember at the times even the invoices were going to the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. But because it was not legal to use kick scooters in the Netherlands, we had to start our pilot project in Belgium. And of course, I was the main reason for it because I was the only one coming from Belgium. So we started testing in Belgium, and my two co-founders left me along the way because of different reasons, personal choices. That the fundraising we tried in 2020, right after the company was founded, coincided with COVID, and I cannot blame COVID for the reason as why we failed, but still it played a role. There was a lot of uncertainty in the market, and nobody wanted to make big tickets for it. And as I said, the asset financing has always been a question in the minds of investors. And this uncertainty and not being able to secure funding resulted in 2 of these co-founders leaving. So that was a big turning point for
Which is funny because one of them left 2 swap feeds, which was the inspiration initially, no? It's
exactly
ironic.
Yes. Ironic. But it made perfect sense to transition from this company into the other one. And I think that was that person's choice.
It's a career path. I mean,
of course.
If you come back to your initial story, if I may, you said you wanted to challenge yourself in order to change that label, and so it's pretty much maybe this is what happened to him. So now he's picked up by a startup that he liked or admired or was interested in, because now after the path that you shared together, now he broke that label and now he's good for that startup. So
well, that person had much more entrepreneurship experience than I did. So he had already started another one in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and another one in another location. So he was a bit more familiar with the process than myself. But he also wanted some more safety than my insanity, let's say,
right.
Because at that time, after my co-founders left, I became so obsessed, which is also not always a good sign, that you don't accept you failed and you keep pushing for it. Or you have other way of looking into it is you still see some hope and you persist until you get there.
So you did not abandon and you kept going?
Yeah, I decided to keep going and I gave myself another year because that was the first year when we failed this first fundraising, and I said, I think maybe 1 year is not enough to see the whole potential of this. And we had some deals in the pipeline, and I said, why don't I push for this particular deal? And that brought us to this purchase of a second-hand fleet of a large sharing company. And that was a crazy point in our history that Anis might remember, having long-haul trucks coming from all over Europe, dropping thousands of scooters in terrible conditions. But yeah, that was an amazing adventure that eventually is why we became Steffix now.
Well, the universe works in mysterious ways.
And after your co-founders left, did you start another fundraising?
Actually, after they left, we had this deal that was not backed by fundraising, but we could convince a bank for a credit, for a bank loan. Again, no funding, so it was a bootstrapped business for 3 years, and especially in a hardware business, that's quite a challenge, I would say. And so we did not have any funding until this point. So for 3 years, we could keep the company going, paying people, paying rental locations, your office, etc., without any funding. So maybe I should be proud of that. And after the deal was we purchase a second-hand fleet, and we go through that fleet, extract as much as value as we can from renting them, refurbishing them, repairing them, reselling them. And we did indeed resell almost 100% of that entire fleet to different people all across Europe, companies and individuals combined. And that created quite some revenues that again kept us another year. So that was the first time we actually hit the spot, so we could make some money. And with that money, we gave ourselves another year. But now with this money, we had a bit more confidence. Then we said, okay, let's do a fundraising, which we started, I think, last October, November 2021. And that fundraising lasted also much longer than we initially anticipated. So it was closed in September this year. So we are happy we didn't announce it yet, but we could close equity fundraising 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well, I knew about it, but...
Yes. We will announce it soon, because there are parts that... it's a fin mix. You have different elements coming together. The equity part is closed. Now we have a large government subsidy. Together with that, it will be around 500,000. The equity part around 300, and the rest will come from some governmental organizations, hopefully. And once the total is combined, we will make a bigger announcement.
And before the round, you did the pivot from step, let's say, mobility, yes. So the device leasing, yeah, to step fix. Correct. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes. We asked ourselves, at the point we made this money from the second-hand fleet, we extracted, like I said, everything we could from that fleet. So we had this money now, and we had some brainstorming sessions with some advisors, with some interns I got from my MBA. So we said, okay, what is next? What are we going to do? Do we continue pushing this same business model, which for 2 years it didn't fly? Should we change it in a way that it becomes maybe more sustainable or financially viable? Or do we completely change the business model into something different? And the winner of that brainstorming session was that we focus only on the after-sales market of micromobility. And that means you are no longer entitled to actually buy assets. So you become a very asset-light business. You don't own scooters. Mm-hmm. You just service them. So from a leasing model, we turned into a servicing business. Of course, it has its own challenges about having mechanics working for you, and you build a team of, like a technical team, and also find clients for them. And we started this last September, so it's almost 1 year old. And of course, we started it as a B2C business because we had a lot of people calling us, oh, can you repair my device? Can you do this for me? And of course, we started with scooters because our history lies in the scooter business. But we know the trends in the micromobility space. E-bikes are growing like crazy, and we want to be more inclusive by actually incorporating different types of two-wheelers, including scooters, e-bikes, even mopeds now. and we tried to find customers from different angles, and that's what I have been doing for the last year. Starting as a B2C model made us realize the winter is coming and winter might be difficult because the usage goes down and you have much more difficulty to find the clients you want, and the marketing budgets go all over the place, and it becomes really difficult to sustain this business in the winter. So we said, why don't we open up new categories like type of partnerships for the B2B side? And when I say B2B, it's not necessarily I'm going to a company and repairing all the bikes they have, but you find another channel still going to the end user, but through not picking them up from Facebook ads, which is very costly. You make this partnership so that you have access to the end user. So we made several categories, including retailers that sell all these e-mobility devices in bulk, like Fnac, Decathlon, Hubo, and this and that. Then we started contacting device manufacturers, e-bike manufacturers, e-scooter manufacturers. Then we talk with fleet operators, sharing companies, as everybody thinks we serve them, which is indeed a potential market. Leasing companies, bike leasing companies. So we know there's a huge market in micromobility, and we are trying to find out which markets work. If we had this podcast in, let's say, April, May, we had no B2B clients, but now we are proud. We can count on 8 or 9 large companies working with us as a mix of leasing, producers, brands, and retailers. So we have these 8 contracts that keep us busy, and there are more than 25 companies in the pipeline that we are really trying to get their businesses, which might mean we scale the business quite a lot. So
that's fantastic.
From February to today, I would say in I don't know how many months, 8 months or so, we became more than 10 times. So we had to actually find new locations so that we could accommodate this bulk repair activities, and we are always on the lookout where is the next location to do that.
Right. And was it easy to find the mechanics to do this job?
That's a very common question we always get, because it was in the news that they said bike mechanics is very rare breed and you can't find them. Partially it's true, but also during this 1 year we spent a lot of time finding the supply of these type of people. Of course, they don't come to you as super trained or experienced bike mechanics, but we work with governmental organizations like VDAB from the Flemish government. They are providing a lot of certification training to people who want to get in this sector. So we have a very good working relationship with them. They provide us people with experience, not necessarily in bikes or steps, but we train them such that they become the experts in what we do. We work with interim agencies that are, of course, more costly, but then you know for sure the person is able to do the job. But I think the interesting factor that maybe nobody knows or doesn't try is we put on our website, would you like to work for us? Like we say mechanic at heart or something like fancy. And that created us, without promotion, no ads, no marketing, around 250 candidates, 250. Mostly in Brussels, I would say 90% in Brussels. Some have a lot of experience, some have much less. Some want to work 7 days, some 2 hours. Some have a self-employed status, like their own VAT number, and some don't. So at least this gives us a huge, let's say, a wait list or a supply of people that we can interview and see. And we already work with some of them already. So that's another channel we activated, and that gives us the confidence we can always find people when we need them.
Amazing.
Yes, amazing story.
Yeah.
I love the pivot.
Yeah, you spoke about different locations, so we know about your offices here in Transforma. Are you based in other cities in Belgium, or are you thinking about expanding somewhere else?
Yes, we have indeed. We use everything Transforma has to offer. So we have Transforma Evere and Zaventem. Zaventem is used mostly as a storage place and an office space for us. And Evere is where most of the team is sitting, with a small atelier and also a nice warehouse where we can store all our stock. Since this B2B business grew faster than we expected, we had to open another one, which is now in Haren, which is only 2 kilometers away. just behind the NATO building. It's also a CityDev entity. For the moment, that does the job, but I think now we are almost at the full capacity of this location, and if we have more clients at this size, we will have to open other locations in Belgium. We need to see where we would do that. I think Antwerp is an option, or Ghent, or Limburg, but that's something we don't know yet. What I do know is that there's a huge demand from the Netherlands, in a country where kick scooters are still not legal.
You cannot have a kick scooter even for yourself?
You can buy them. The law says you cannot use them in the public roads, only in private terrains, which is so weird, because almost the same number of trottinettes were sold in the Netherlands as in Belgium. So there are 200,000 sales.
Where do they use them then?
On the
or they
streets.
break the law?
They just break the law.
They don't know about it, maybe.
Everybody knows.
It's you have tons of laws like this that exist, but they are not enforced.
The police enforces it in the Netherlands, surprisingly.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've seen a lot of scooter users stopped by the police, and they have a conversation. Sometimes they let you go, sometimes you get a fine. So people take that risk. And unless you are in the very, very city center, nobody sees you or stops you. And the young generation likes to take that risk for the moment. And I believe Netherlands will also come to senses and let this work. But they are being overly protective of their cycling culture, that they don't want to see competition to that. So Netherlands, we have quite some demand, surprisingly, and they are pulling us into opening a new location in the Netherlands. So I already contacted some governmental organizations that help international companies to launch in the Netherlands. So we are talking with some to see where that would be without taking any steps. As the financial markets are really a bit uncertain and we don't want to take huge risks. But we keep an eye on, if things go really in the right direction, we can launch a new location.
Nice, but you can start with the e-bikes.
Yes, e-bikes, we didn't talk.
The Netherlands.
I mean, step means in Dutch, as many of you know, scooters. And our logo has a step on it. So everybody thinks, we are a step company. And rightfully so. But in April, we opened up to the world of e-bikes. That was also a new business for us. We didn't know much about e-bikes. Our first client was Ahuga. It's a Brussels bike producer, a young company, and very, very nice design and everything.
I do have a foldable Ahuga.
Yes, I remember that. So we worked with them as a pilot project, but now we have several bike producers who work with us. We work with Yule. It's a Ghent startup doing bike leasing. I think Polari has one, Yule from Cowboy.
Right, yeah.
So that's one. But we also work with the bike manufacturer from Ypres, from the other side of the country, called Minerva. And these are also a huge company with 40,000 sales a year, etc. So we do help them in a different way than the scooter business, because the scooter business is easier to transport the device, put it in a box, and move it around the country, where we have what we call central repairs. So it comes from all over the country into one location where we do the repairs. The bike is different, where we do mobile repairs. So the mechanics jumps in our camionettes and they drive around the country and they do the repairs on the premises of the client. And that's the mobile repair business that works for Ahuga, for Minerva and Yule right now. And we are on the lookout for new clients to make that happen, like big organizations.
Have you met Etienne from Bike for Three, who's a member of Transforma?
I don't remember.
You know the bike for Three? It's a long trail.
Yes, I think so.
So that's a Belgian company.
Yes, I remember them.
And they do the frames somewhere in Eastern Europe, but then they do everything else here. So assembling and everything in Anderlecht.
Okay.
And so they're members of Transforma. So I'll introduce you to.
Please. Any bike company, we are interested to talk to them, small or big. It's also learning for us. We start with smaller companies, we grow together with them, and we can have more confidence and credibility in the market so that we can target the bigger firms. So for now, of course, they would like to see some track records, and we are trying to build that so that we can grow.
You're doing very well. Yeah, Bike for Threes as well have a huge success. So I have kids in in school in Etterbeek, for example. And in the beginning, there were 2 bikes, us and another family, and then now a lot of them come in the morning, pretty much. It's very, it's very popular in.
They just build the frame or the
in Brussels.
entire bike?
They do everything.
Okay.
Well, they have the electric part is, I think now is Bosch. They changed the setup a couple of times, but obviously you have parts like Shimano in there as well. They don't reinvent the wheel.
No.
But everything else.
So they are a bike brand, not just a frame manufacturer.
No.
Okay.
They're bike for 3. The idea is that you can put 3 people, or actually 4 people. So the driver, we can have 2 kids in the back and 1 in the front. So
like a seat, or is it like a cargo bike type of a?
So it's modulable. So you can put seats. For example, now we have I have 3 kids. 2 are under 4. So we prefer that they use seats.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 seats in the back. The older has 8, so he still can use one of those seats if we need. One of them needs to go in. But the idea later on is to remove the seats and install more like rail. And so, and then when it's not any more kids using it, you can change it and use it as a cargo bike, for example, or more like for shopping or stuff like that. I see Etienne, for example, Etienne Richel, he's the co-founder of Bike for 3. He does everything with it. For example, he goes on holidays with it. And there is there's a group on Facebook for users of Bike for 3. People post pictures, can be really creative. You can transport stuff with it. And I like it more than the other cargo bikes.
Urban
when they have
Urban Arrow.
Urban Arrow, it's not my thing.
Yeah,
I find them like a little bit difficult to handle. Some people love them.
I tried it once and I was like, wow, I probably need to get used to it because it wasn't.
Yeah, in the traffic jams, you see bikers in some difficulties sometimes. Yeah.
This long trail, so Bike for 3, is literally, I think, 15 centimeters longer than a regular bike, or 20 centimeters longer, and it allows you to do so much more. And so you use it as a regular bike. It's very, very easy to handle. My spouse uses it all the time, for example.
But Urban Arrow was a huge, sales success. They have a very good branding and everything. So you can see it everywhere.
As you know, this is the best place to meet people, partners, and future clients.
In podcasts.
Transforma Brussels. Transforma.be.
Do you bike? Do you use a step on your daily life?
I used to do more often. Now I do a bit less because I have a baby now. I should maybe invest into maybe Bike for 3 so that I can have for my daughter also a seat or so. The only challenge we have is we live in the center and our crash is a bit uphill, so I need something e-bikey, so I need a motor for it. So I am in the lookout to find some bikes that can accommodate the baby. I just need to get the mental preparation to do it in the winter also.
Yeah.
In my previous job I worked in Bruges, so you can imagine I was taking the train for an hour. And from the train station to my office, I was biking every single day, snow. And 10 years ago, there was much more snow than now. So I was like sometimes skating in the ice. So I was completely okay with that idea. Now I'm a bit more, maybe I'm getting old.
We often ask to our guests how they cope with their entrepreneurial activities, the dead life, and
the stress, the uncertainty.
Of the times we are actually living in. What do? Do you have some activities that keep you motivated and keep you boosted for each day?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, and you can hear my heart breathing. It's always stressful to be an entrepreneur, and you try to find a way that comforts you. In my case, I think my wife and my daughter are the ones that I find the balance. And if we have difficulties with the baby, then you really come to an explosion and you still try to sustain that lifestyle. When I come home, I used to work a lot and I would continue working. Now you have, after the crash, you have limited time to spend with your daughter and it's only 2-3 hours and then she goes to bed. And then I go back to work. But I think the family needs to be extremely supportive if you do entrepreneurship. If your wife or your spouse, let's say, doesn't support you, with the same passion as you have, this will always create some conflicts internally. So you need to make sure that the decisions you make in your life as an entrepreneur, as a startup founder, is also in line with what you expect as a couple. And if your wife doesn't, let's say, agree with you to build this business for the next 5 years and have several locations or expand and move with the company, etc., then you will have more, let's say, frustration, disappointment within the family. And if the work is already stressful and when you come home you want to have some peace, so if there's disagreements on that, I mean, if you don't find that peace at home, then you can't sustain that lifestyle. So I make sure in every decision, even the fundraisings, if the fundraisings fail, if we keep pushing or if we stop, I always talk with my wife as my, let's say, coach or advisor indeed.
Partner in crime.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have that support, otherwise you can't sustain this. What I will write on in the coming days when the fundraising is completely finished will be more the mental story behind this. And I will try to explain, like, yeah, I mean, you only see on LinkedIn the successful stories of fundraising and people are super happy, they find a new job and everything. But behind the scenes, maybe there are 90% of people who can't who can't succeed at fundraising, so who completely screw up and you fail at fundraising, which is completely normal, but it's not usually talked about. They only share the good stories, but not the bad ones. And I will try to share my story in that LinkedIn post that I'm already drafting, because it can be really draining to you as a person, and I think people need to have some support groups for difficulties like depression. Founder depression is a topic. You can Google it, you will find a lot of articles about this, because founders are the ones that maybe are on the stage all the time, but they are also the most lonely people.
To conclude our podcast, there is something you've learned, or surely more than one thing, but if you have one thing you have learned and you keep it for yourself and go through and continue to go through your entrepreneurial path, what is this?
That's a philosophical question. But I mean, I'm not gonna bullshit like, oh, you have to keep pushing, or like, you can do this type of motivational speeches. I don't trust in those types of motivation. And I don't think everybody should be entrepreneurs. That's not for everybody. It's, again, unlike the typical thing, oh, you can do it, you can just push and you will succeed. It should always be seen as an experiment. You can try something. If you don't like it, you will only learn. So there's nothing you can lose by trying or experimenting something. And you should always know there's a way back, that you can turn things around. If you have an idea, if you want to do something, you can try it. Maybe you will like it, maybe you won't. But it takes a lot of courage to take that first step. In my case, I took that first step. I could have not liked it and I could go back, but I didn't. And now the more time you spend in entrepreneurship, the more difficult it becomes to get back to a corporate life. I'm not regretting it, but I also can say it's not for everybody, and nobody should push anybody to become entrepreneurs.
Yes, sure. So 3 years in, or 4 years in, after the initial, let's say, idea of getting out of your comfort zone and changing the label,
Yes.
what's the conclusion after 4? I think what you just said could be the conclusion pretty much. But
yeah,
are you satisfied? Like, if you could go back like 4 years ago, would you have taken the same step?
I probably would, because I mean, I see my MBA classmates, they are probably making nicer salaries and with nice compensation packages than myself. None of them have created or built something from scratch that I did. Not everybody appreciates it except yourself. So you should also be proud with the things you do. I think that's the thing I lack. I always compare myself with others, and I only focus on the things that I don't have. While I have, I think, maybe a lot of things I succeeded that I underestimate. So maybe you need someone like your wife to tell you, like, I'm proud of you because you succeeded this. because you are in this fight, or let's say war of entrepreneurship, that you always target the extreme scenarios of unicorns and this and that, so you see yourself as unsuccessful. But even in the smallest business, if you have an office, if you have an employee, these are all stories you could celebrate and be proud of. What I am thinking towards the future is, I think I will continue this, and I will spend more time in mentoring and advising companies, startups, younger profiles, who will go through the same steps as I did. So I'm already a mentor in Started KBS network. I do also entrepreneurship in residence, so mentorship in my MBA program for current students, so that I can share my experiences, and maybe that can become a part of my career also in the future.
That's really good. With these words of wisdom,
We can end the podcast.
Yes.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Evrim. It was a pleasure to
Thanks a lot,
having you,
Federica
for
and
having
Anis.
you.
Pleasure
Thanks,
to be
Evrim.
with you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Ciao.